Alright guys, I took the Planetary apart on the 5665 and this freaking thing is shot. So you see the wear on these bushings here? Those things are totally shot. So I know I pointed this out in an earlier video, but this is a good gear here. This is a bad gear. Sorry, it's tough to do. If you look at the difference on these teeth, the bad gear, the teeth are pretty pointed, worn off. Let me see if I can hold them next to each other like this. But the one in the back, the teeth are bigger. The ones that are worn are all pointed and crappy. Now, I've never actually seen a machine where these gears were bad. Usually it's the other gears that are bad. And what I found out is that the actual input gear that's on the crankshaft is toast also. So I'm going to now have to find one of them. I happen to have one in stock, but so these things are Schottky, and you know, again, I have new bushings that I got from McMaster Car, but even the ones that I just put on there are pretty bad. So you know, chances are that these pins can be bad too. So you should measure the diameter of these pins and see if they're out of round. But these things are just totally shot. Look at the play that's in there. So you wonder why the tractor sound like it's going to blow up. It's because of this sloppiness. And in fact, these old gears are going right into the scrap box over here, right in the scrap box. So again, I'm going to see if these pins are round. As long as they're round, I'll be able to put new bushings in. And the bushings cost about $2 a piece from McMaster Car. Now what we've got here is my parts Planetary, and the pins on the other one were a little suspect. So I'm going to try to take these gears off my parts Planetary. Now these bolts here have reverse threads, so be careful of that when you take them apart. I bought this one used and for parts, and it's got a snapped off, one of these pins is snapped off on it. So I have a feeling that someone tried to take it apart and they didn't know that they were reverse threads. Now, you get the nut off the bottom, it's hard to get this gear up. The big bolt takes a 5/8 wrench, gets kind of stuck in there, so you got to pry it up a little bit. So what I do is I take a screwdriver and I pry up on the outside of the gear, and let me tighten up my vise. And I turn this here like I'm tightening it. Oh, this is really in there. This is the hardest part of this job, is getting the old pins out. Oh man, that thing's really in there. Once you get it pried up a little bit, man, this is really tough. There you go. Once you can get your screwdriver under the gear there, it gets a lot easier. Oh man, I feel like I'm going to snap it in half. Jeez. I see why the other guy broke the thing off. This sucker is in there. Maybe that's good. Maybe it's not worn. Maybe it's a good sign. Ugh. This is tough work, guys. About halfway off. Usually they're not this tough. This one's giving me hell. that one's out. Now, that was a lot of work to get one little piece out. Now this gear here is a lot better than the one that I took out. And just for comparative purposes, you can see the teeth. They're not too much different, but this one is a little nicer. The shiny one is the one that came out. This dull looking one is the bad one. So the real question is, how are these pins? And what I do is I quickly just measure them with my little caliper here. Let's see if I can take my glove off. Let's see. Now, I take my little Harbor Freight caliper. We'll measure them up, see how round they are. Now I got 4.493, 493. Yeah. You want to go like 90 degrees and see how they are. So 477, 488. So this thing is not round. 483, 489, 477. So they're out of round. In a ballpark of 5 thousandths at least. So what does that mean? Well, it means if they're out of round, no matter how good you get your bushing, it's not going to be right because your pin is screwed up. Now I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but you see how the gear will rock back and forth? That's partially because the bushing's worn, but partially because the pin ain't round. So these things are expensive. One of these gears costs $68 new. And I want to say these pins are like $60 a piece new. So if you were going to do this the right way, you would need at least 3 pins and 3 gears. So you'd be into it for, I'm rounding up, $400 just to replace 3 gears and 3 pins. I'm not going to spend $400 on this tractor for 3 gears and 3 pins. It's just not in the budget. If I was a commercial landscaper, yes, I would do it. But I'm just a hobbyist and I'm not going to spend that kind of money on this. So I'm going to find the best pins that I can get here. And I'm going to put my bushings in. And even when I rebush it, it's going to be a heck of a lot better than it was before. It won't be perfect, but it will be pretty close to it. So I'm going to take the rest of these out and I'll report back in a little bit. Alright, so we got all our gears here and they all have that insert in there. What I have is a 1/2 inch pin from Tractor Supply. We put that in the press here and we'll press out those bearing inserts from all our gears. So it's really a piece of cake here. It's that easy. It's the old one. We'll move on to the next gear. And then we'll reverse the process and press our new inserts in. Really a simple little process here. Just takes a few minutes and you can take them all out with relative ease. And you know, so I did these 3 big gears here. And basically we've got the little gears to do, so I'll do them in a minute, but what I have here is a pile of brand new bushings from McMaster Carr. And again, they're roughly $2 a piece. If you buy them from Gravely, they're in the ballpark of $9 or $10 a piece. So what I do is I just slide this over. You try to get it lined up as best you can square before you start pressing it. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I use the fat end here and I press it in. Actually, for these we should go from the other side. And we'll just press it in. I'm gonna try to get this centered in the press here. Again, I don't want it to go in sideways. I want it to be pretty flat. I don't want it to mushroom or anything like that. And that's it, man. That's a new bushing. It's that simple. And then the next step after we get all this done will be to ream them out, and we'll go from there. I'll do another one here while you guys are watching. Well, first you got to drill a hole in there. I forgot to say that there's a hole here that the oil goes through. You see this hole? I bring it to the drill press and drill that hole through before we ream them, and we'll be in pretty good shape. Oh, I dropped it. Put this in. Press that sucker right in there. Nice and simple. So that's how we rebush our gears. It's not really rocket science. This little Harbor Freight press is really the best thing in the world, man. All this stuff is such a breeze having this press. I'll tell you that much. It really is a simple thing. Pretty inexpensive to have. I've used it for all kinds of little jobs now. Yeah, so that's the 3 big ones. So that's how we rebush gears, boys. Alright, so now we got 3 newly bushed big gears, 3 newly bushed little gears. Just to illustrate what happens, before you even ream them, they don't even fit on the shaft. So, you know, basically what we're going to do is ream them until they fit on the shafts. And what I found out is that I like to ream all 3 at once. So I'll just hit them all, test them, none of them will fit. I'll bump up the reamer size a hair, hit them again, keep doing it, bump it up a little bit. It's not too scientific, I just do it to feel. I'm not measuring anything when I'm reaming. So, and it's very sensitive, so I take a little bit off, I'll ream it once, I'll test it, I'll do all 3 to save setup time. I'll run the reamer through again with a hair bigger setting, try it again, it doesn't work, then we'll just keep redoing them. And I found that that's the fastest way to handle it, as the less setup time. So, you know, again, once you get the bushings in, you got to drill that hole. So I just put it in the drill press and in my little vise and bang out that little hole in that little setup there. It's real simple. And then we just got to ream them.